Welcome back to Ethereal Material, where the mystical meets the practical.
We are Carla and Priscilla, two professional mediums discussing the gap between the seen and the unseen.
And we will talk about anything, any topic is on the table. But today we're going to talk about ourselves. We're going to discuss
Who
who
we
we are
are.
and what we do and what it's like doing those sorts of things. And I just think, well, you and I both have been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
Would you say your practice has evolved?
Yes, I would have to. Yeah, it's evolved.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
evolved. The practice has evolved. And I've matured and changed my style over the years. And yeah,
what's the biggest thing that you've noticed between, I mean, aside from, newbie jitters and stuff, and, the lack of the difficulty with confidence in the beginning, between the way you read, the way you did psychic or mediumship readings then, and the way you do them now? What do you think is the biggest difference?
there's a confidence that I have that in the early part, I had to discern confidence versus arrogance. Because I remember, excuse me, one time where I had an almost, this is years ago, I had an almost arrogant feel to me because it was just hit after hit. It's probably 12 or 13 years ago, 14, more like 14 years ago. And I remember as soon as I felt that feeling, I started losing connection. And I went that
Yeah.
night. I remember doing a Reiki healing session with someone, and she said, "You're confusing confidence with arrogance." And for a while back then, I had to actually put that in check.
Mm.
So today, when I read, I know what I know, and
Yeah.
I am confident. I don't say with arrogance, but when you see me, I am a bit of a New York personality, I admit. So when I know something,
Yeah.
I say, "No, this is it."
Right.
End of story. I could get the shade of gray wrong, but I feel it in
Yeah.
here. There's a feeling that if you do this enough,
Right.
you know when you're hitting it. Again, the shade of gray could be off. I was, as an example, right? I was just talking about something where I saw a hot dog, which can mean a hot dog.
Right.
And I said, "Is there a dachshund in spirit?" And the person, I said, "Or a hot dog person." And she gave me this huge piece of evidence relating to hot dogs.
Right.
I knew not to back down because
Right.
I could feel that. That's, I think, a big thing that evolves in our work.
Mm.
How about you?
Yeah, to follow up on that, I would say a big part of the confidence for me too is being able to, I don't want to say argue back with a client, but I had a client recently um, and she said, "Oh, that must be my, let's just, I don't remember the details. That must be my mother." And it would have been so easy for me to say, "Oh, you're right," but it wasn't. And I had to say, "No, I'm not talking about your mother because she's not standing next to you where the mother stands,
I know
me
you.
visually." And but she couldn't take any of the other evidence. I mean, I was giving her, some cancer twice, a couple of things, that were, not generic, but it was at the very beginning of the reading, and I just kind of checked in with the spirit, and and she really wanted to talk to her mother, so that would have been so easy, but to go to myself, "Oh, okay, now I got to work a little harder, or this is going to be a little bit harder." And eventually we did discover who this person was. So, but to be able to say, and she asked me, in fact, at the end, do the spirit people tell you when, yes, they know that they've got me, it's me. And I said, more so they tell me when they're not, like, so I can't make this your mother because the spirit is going to go, now I'm not going to give you anything."
I get that, but it's a feeling in here for
Yeah.
me. I just know, and
I
I'm
feel a
no
withdrawal, like, nope, that's not me.
that I can feel, but it's mostly in here. And
Mm.
one of my lines, and it's in a gallery I did the other night. It just happens all the time. I'll say, "I'd love to take that,
Yeah.
but that's not it." And they do want it to be it because
Right.
the name may, I could have a name match and an illness
Yep.
match, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I want to take it, but that's not who it is." And then, all of a sudden someone else at the table goes, "Wait, but I have a person with that unusual
Yeah.
name who had this." And then I'll ask spirit to give me something else, and we see where it hits.
Right.
And then I
Right.
know where I am. So that's evolved over the years.
I remember going to um, this was years ago, a local, not local to my town. I went to another town, and she was local to that town. It was at their library, and she had done, groups at the library before, and it was sort of an open, it was free, and and it was quite packed, and there was a woman. sort of down the row from me. I was kind of right in the middle between the aisle, and she was on the other side of the room, and she was talking about my cousin, my cousin's profession. She gave my cousin's name, which was not, it's a Polish nickname, so it's not a usual name. That, the circumstances of her life, the circumstances of her death. And the woman across the room was saying, no, no, I can't. And I held my hand up and I said, I can take everything. And she said, no, I'm over here. So that medium,
I know who you're talking about.
I'm sure you
because
do.
I totally do, okay.
You've had the
That-
same experience
I
with that one?
did. We'll talk about later who it was.
Okay.
I was sitting with someone. She was sitting here, a friend, and the woman was talking about being a teacher at a Catholic school,
Mhm.
blah, 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 blah. And that was me. I had taught at a Catholic school,
Yeah.
all this. And my friend was none of that. And I'm like, and she's like, nope. And I'm like,
Yeah. That was,
like,
I mean,
whoa. I was like,
I don't know
I
why
missed the
she
message.
wanted to really double down because it
Yeah.
wasn't even like the things she could have said that the woman she was trying to give the spirit to could take at all. Like, I don't have a cousin in the spirit world. I don't know anybody with, and the people in the audience can have that amnesia at the moment and go, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But here I am over here going, pick me, Monty, and I'm not going to jump up and say, oh, it must be for me. It must be for me. I have,
No.
I have high standards, possibly high standards as a medium, but also as a client. And she would not even say, well, I feel like what I would do is like, if I feel like I'm over here, but please keep listening.
Yes.
You person who can take all this, please keep listening because they must have something in common. There must be a message in common. The two
Right.
spirits might be trying to help each other come in.
Exactly.
Maybe you
That
two
you
were
were
supposed to
doing,
meet. I don't
absolutely.
know, but there's a way rather than just to say, shut it down and say, nope, it's not for you.
That's
So
funny.
I think the way that readings have been different for me is I am less ritualistic about them. In the beginning years, I would do certain things before I'd get in a certain kind of a thing. Sometimes I'd meditate. That didn't work for me. It slowed everything down. I danced to, happy music. And then I think I either recognized or I got more fluid to go from one state to the next to just be like, I sit down now in the medium. Or I stand
That's
up now in the
right.
medium.
That's true.
And I don't need to
even
open it. I don't need to close it.
time. I mean, I do speak to them, tell them how I work in a group or even a
Oh
private
yeah, me
reading.
too.
I do a quick breathing. I say my own prayer because that's me.
Uh-huh.
But I used to have to get to the event early, breathe, not for like an hour or anything,
Right.
and do this whole chakra thing.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. Hey, since we're talking about what we do, I have a question for you. I have always said, and this is my opinion and only my opinion only, I believe psychic ability is the foundation to mediumship. I think you can get messages, anybody can get a message from their loved one.
Right.
But when you're building to be a medium, maybe I'm old school, and that's okay. I think psychic ability and strengthening that, almost like a foundation of a house, to bring it up. And I still stand by that. But again, I know you can get messages, but to be
Yeah.
almost like a nail file to really smooth down.
I think I would agree with that. Only because I feel like for building your own skill set, whether the information comes from the spirit world or from the physical world, the way psychic information does, psychic information can be a lot easier to validate when you're figuring it out on your own or doing things on your own. And if you can build a solid confidence in your own ESP,
what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
on a day-to-day basis, it is a very strong foundation because then when the mediumship, either you turn your attention to mediumship or the spirits find you and go, hey, look, turn our lights on. I think you have more confidence in saying
I think
things.
so too. And I've always stood by that. And I recently on social media saw somebody discussing who this person has a general habit of having the platform be against other people. And that's just not my wheelhouse, whatever. But their opinion, which is fine. And I don't, I could care less what someone else thinks. But they were like, you do not have to be a psychic to be a medium, blah, 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 blah. And I understand that in the real world, sure. But if you're training, I do still stand by that. So I'm not saying I'm right and someone else is wrong, but as to find out what we do, since we're sharing, I believe and you don't have to study for 10 years or anything, but I think it's almost like working out with weights. You start out slower
Yeah.
and you build up. That's
That's
my
that's
type.
the way
That's
I did it.
period.
I think
I
I
do
didn't
too.
have a particular plan to become a medium, but as I became more and more comfortable and um, more proficient with psychic stuff, I mean, and maybe the mediumistic stuff was there all along. I didn't recognize it as that, but I think I really was working solely as a psychic for a couple of years before
Oh,
I
I
began
did it
to,
for
yeah,
years.
yeah.
In fact, I was like, I would love to be a medium. That's a passion for me. That would be great. I would teach school. I teach school during the day, and I would do tarot parties, psychic things on the side because I loved
Mhm.
it. And I envied the mediums. I thought, but that couldn't be me. Stuff happened, and then
Surprise.
it did.
Right.
And which reminds me, though, to talk about what we do. I still read cards, and I've told you know this.
Mhm.
I'm more than on one occasion say, I don't want to read cards anymore. I don't need them. But every time I do read them, which is several times a week for clients, they're accurate.
Mm.
I haven't, so I have to stop trying to fight that
Yeah,
and not do that. I don't need them in a psychic reading, but they really enhance. So that is part of what we do, right? Do you still read
sure.
do cards?
I do,
Not
but
as much as me.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, maybe
I
not.
wish I had never learned what the cards mean because I find that the whole the real difficulty I feel in doing any sort of intuitive work is turning off your rational mind.
And it's the cards have that logical
And
book
the
meaning.
cards
I
have
know
the
what
book
you
meaning,
mean.
right? And so even if I'm feeling something, very strongly, and then I pull a card and the card doesn't really match it, I'm just like, "Ugh," and I don't, then I start like hedging and I think that then too
I
much, I
see what,
start
yeah.
thinking too much. So,
I agree, and that's why I almost stopped years ago, but they do generally turn out the same for me. But I'd much rather do the psychic reading, throw the cards and validate it
mm,
afterwards. But I do respect, though it's not what I do, those people that are diehard tarot readers that study the tarot for
yeah,
like 20 years, and they really do, and they really only go by the meaning of the book. That's it. And but to me, instead of saying you're wrong, that's just your lane.
yeah,
It's not my lane, but
yeah.
I don't feel the need to say somebody's wrong. I just don't.
Maybe we should get bones and pebbles and feathers and throw those,
Right?
you know,
Runes.
runes. Yeah, but even runes have
I know. Actually, runes have
definite
meaning
meanings.
as
Yeah,
well.
right, right. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what else? We're talking about us. So you've done this longer than I have. I've
Mhm.
done this for 16 years full time as a medium and intuitive and teaching and code, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Started reading in 93 cards, and you've done that longer than I have.
What got you started?
In which part?
The whole metaphysical journey.
Great question. My mother, I came from a very conservative family, science-based, so it's not like there was a lot of woo-woo happening in my house. However, my mother was intuitive and her mother was probably a medium and
Mm.
just didn't, born in 1911 or
Mm.
'09 or whatever she was born. Probably wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
And I think it actually was part of what destroyed her in her life and had an early unhealthy
Oh.
demise, my grandmother, because she got a lot of stuff. But she used to say her mother knew things, and my mother knew things, had some out of body experiences. But the thing was that besides my mother knew things, she was very into astrology. And I think my
Mm.
father could take that a little more being a scientist
Oh,
because there was
sure. Yeah.
too mathematical for me. But
Right.
so they would go to England every year. There was a woman named Judith G. She is still one of the most, she's dead, but one of the most renowned psychics in the world. She wrote for
Mm.
American Astrology Today. It was like the person of the world was Judith
Wow.
G. And they would go to Judith G like once a year and they're on business there and get readings. So my mother had my chart done when I was born. Of course, I threw that out. I was 19. I'm like, I didn't need this. I regret it so much. And that got me into
I
it.
could have explained everything.
It literally was telling me, it said I would only have sons. I mean, it was really accurate,
Hmm.
like beyond words. And that's when they weren't plugging into a computer. They were
Yeah.
actually, she was so intuitive. I had to do it again for me in the 80s. I, of course, lost that one too. I
Mm.
don't know where I didn't throw it out. So that really got me on it. And things started happening when I was 4. And then my mother would say, you're just like my mother, or you're just like your grandmother, but then zip up. Because
Mm.
my mother was from New England. So she was like,
Oh, yeah.
you know the type. That's all she'd say. She's like my mother, or you're like your grandmother. So it naturally was part of my household. Oh, I do have a story where you know the story. My parents had people coming in from, I'm going to say England. I don't know. It was Sir and Lady so and so,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
she could move a glass up on a table. So now my father, the scientist, was like, all right, I need to see this. They set me to bed. I never got to see a thing. I was a kid. And apparently she moved the, as then my father put it, the goddamn glass on the table. They all stood around the dining room table back.
Mhm.
My father undid everything and she moved the glass.
Mhm.
And they were just like, I can't explain it. So for me, it was always in my life.
Mhm.
But no one said grow up and be a medium. I can assure you that would not have been
Yeah,
allowed
yeah.
when doing college applications. That, yeah, you're just going to be a medium, so don't do that. And you?
I hear it's a great, and I've used it, it's a great thing when you get pulled over. Or if you are called for jury duty.
Jury duty. Well, they asked me, could I be objective? And I said, I can try, but I don't think so.
I didn't even get that question. What's your name? What do you do? Where do you live? The judge asked everybody first. And I said, who I am, medium, I live in Putnam Valley. And the judge said, what's that? And I said, I talk to dead people.
Bah,
And
she's
and
nuts.
and I said the lawyer voir dire me was like, just move on. They went through everybody before they dismissed me from that, um,
Well,
but
you can't be objective.
I don't think
because I could say, yeah, I get all that, but my vibe is
yeah,
they didn't do it or they did do it. And
right.
it would be very hard to be completely objective.
Yeah, I would agree. So I don't know that there was one singular event. It was not talked about in my house. We were
Oh,
raised
yeah.
Catholic, and I, just weren't really exposed to it wasn't shut down, but it just um I just wasn't exposed to anything like that. And I think what started me on the whole, and I think like every child, every person we have metaphysical experiences and we don't quite know how to explain them. I can remember, a premonition of a bridge falling in and cars going in the water and that happening the next day, when I was like 13 or 14. Um, but I didn't tell anybody about it because I thought I caused it, right? So,
No.
but again, it was something I was able to kind of put away. But it wasn't until I was in my very early 30s, like 31, when I went for a past life regression because I had a terrible eating disorder and I just could not, I tried everything, couldn't get over it. And kind of at the end of my rope, I had a past life regression and I was cured like
I
that.
know you said that. That's
And
amazing.
the regressionist had used hypnosis. And so I thought at the very end of that session, I have to learn how to do this because every woman I knew had a bad relationship with food. So I went to the National Guild of Hypnotists, which is still the oldest governing body. There's no certification, well, there's certification, but there's no licensure for hypnosis. But if you want to become a hypnotist or you're interested in that, go right for the quality, the oldest, most established ngh.org, National Guilds of Hypnotists, and be associated with them because they have a union, they have insurance connections, they have wonderful ethical guidelines, they have a directory. So if you're living in, Elizabethtown, New Jersey, and you want to, quit smoking, you can look and see who the closest one there is to you and know that you're getting a qualified person. So anyway, so I became a hypnotist, and while I was doing hypnosis for people, I was just aware of all this other information that was coming in. I mean, I was very relaxed, they were very relaxed. And my once I began to introduce some of that stuff, because clients would kind of come out of their, it's not really, we don't really use the word trance anymore, but this hypnosis, altered state of consciousness, say, boy, you said exactly the right thing. And, you did touch on something, this wound from before, from my dad or my mother or, whatever. And I realized, I'm not sort of reading off a script. And then I don't even know what the turning point was there, but I just decided I'm going to pursue this aspect of it. And I just started paying attention to that and I just started doing readings. I didn't use cards.
You didn't train initially with anybody.
I did not train
That's
initially with
right.
anybody.
That's right.
I just said, all right, if this is coming to me, it must not be wrong. There must be a reason to do it. And it wasn't, and this was a long time ago too. So the internet was not around. Um, And you'd have to find some witchy bookstore on the Lower East Side and hope there was a book on something about spirit guides or astral planes, or it
Mhm.
was there was no this was not at all mainstream. And so yeah, for many, many years. I mean, I did later on many years, and since then I have gone and studied with
Oh, I know.
you
You
know,
did it later in your
yeah,
career, like
yeah,
not long ago. Like I knew you
right.
16
Right.
years ago, and you just did this like eight
That's the
years
thing. I
ago.
learned how to ski too. My parents put me on skis when I was like 4 years old at the top
Oh
of a
my
slope. They're
God.
like, push me, like follow that person. They know what they're doing. And so you're just like, all right. Then I didn't have a ski lesson until I was in my mid 30s. And I was like,
That's
oh, that's how you do
hilarious.
it. That's why it's so much easier. So yeah, so get instruction if you feel like
I
it.
do
But if you
believe
don't have
instruction.
instruction, you can,
But now it's
hammer it all
easier to
out.
get
Yeah,
instruction. I don't know, maybe it's the teacher. I mean, I do think studying is really good, but you've got to find the right person because we know
that's
we have
true.
seen not the right people.
The thing I think with anything that is in the intuitive arts is that the experience can only ever be subjective. And like me, like for someone like me who is very hands-on, very kinesthetic, and also very logical. Like I want to know what to
Right.
do, to what degree to do it, in what order, what results I'm supposed to get in order to feel like I'm doing it right. And you can't do that with this sort of thing because you can have the greatest medium in the world teaching you. And I had one of those, and she still end up saying, "What do you feel is happening next?" So it all still comes back to the subjective interpretation of what your experience is. So I think by not having a teacher at the beginning for me and having to kind of figure it out as like, what does this mean to me? Gave me kind of went or did an end run around the kind of low self-esteem approach I had to learning, which was I can gather all the intellectual knowledge, I can stockpile knowledge, I can memorize textbooks, I can do all of that stuff. You test me on it, I'll get A's. But if I have to interpret something that's coming from my own subjective experience, I didn't have the confidence for that. So,
Mm.
because was I doing it right? And I was comparing myself. Used to compare myself a lot to other people when I was much younger, and my self-esteem wasn't great. Um, like she looks like she's really knows what she's doing, or he looks like he really knows what he's doing. Do I know what I'm doing? I don't know, all that imposter syndrome stuff. So I think for me, kind of hammering it all out for myself is the only way I ever could have become
Mm.
successful. And trust in my own intuition, trust in it, see that hot dog, that dachshund,
Well,
and
that's
say,
that
I'm
feeling
going to
that you
say this.
get
I don't
over
care if you don't know
time.
what the hell I'm talking about. I see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. And,
That's
and not
experience
be,
and
yeah,
time. You know the
yeah,
feeling, you know.
especially in the face of a client who says, I don't know what you're talking about, and you're going to persist with it. So it is, yeah, it's confidence, it's certainty, it's conviction, and it's trusting yourself too.
And practice, practice,
And practice,
practice.
practice,
That's true.
practice.
Practice, practice is a
Yeah.
big thing. And then, you talk about other stuff that we did. Within that, we do this for years. It's our passion, but within that, we extend to manifesting, creating, because
Yeah.
we've seen that works in our lives. And that's, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the jack of all trade thing.
Mm,
Again, just my opinion. But the reason why we stem from psychic to medium to manifest and creating and
mhm.
teaching is because we want to build and not be stagnant. And we notice there's something to it. In the
Yeah.
same way, it's like, oh, the hot dog thing. But if you do X, Y, and Z in manifesting,
Yeah.
it works. Wow. So
I
that's
just have to tell you this regarding manifesting because that's my jam. I love that stuff, and it's been um, I had these certain financial goals, and I was about $8,000 short of my financial goals by the end of this March, by the end of this month, and or right at the end of March. And part of me is going, you couldn't see enough clients between now and the day
right,
after
right.
tomorrow to or whatever
You're
to
right.
bounce that up. But as in manifesting, you're not supposed to try to figure out how. So I'm like,
No way.
this is what I need, not what I need, but this is what I'm bringing in. Well, I went and got I went up with my tax preparer, and apparently I have overpaid because I pay quarterly estimated tax. I have overpaid by about
That's
$7,950. So I'm getting that
right.
back
Isn't
in the
that
next
fun?
couple
And
of
you,
days.
yeah, you can't control
And
where it comes from.
and
It's
then when my
crazy.
part of my mind is picking it. Yeah, but it's not new money coming in. It's your money anyway. But
I knew you were gonna say that,
but
it's
the
not
point is,
$8,000, it's $50.
I know, right? But yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but I've done this enough now where I'm like, I don't care. I exercised that particular discipline, and here it is. I don't think if I had not overpaid, I would have saved an extra $8,000. So even though it's mine coming back to
Right,
me,
no, but
it's a nice lump sum that's just
Mhm.
gonna make me hit that.
the fine art of manifesting,
That's
now, you left out that part.
Right.
And you reach the peak and then you're like, oh, but I forgot to say that
Oh,
part.
I
So
should have just tweaked that way.
when I'm teaching it, when I'm doing videos, I always say, take your bar to here and then add an
Right.
extra, because we tend to cap in
Yes,
manifesting.
exactly. I mean, I'll probably find
All the
50
time.
bucks in the mailbox or something. You know what I mean?
You will. You told me stories. It's crazy. So yeah,
I love what we do, and I love working with you. Carla
Yeah.
and I teach workshops. We have our podcast, of course. We
or
trade
we
clients
do
back and forth
demos.
together. Yep, we
Yes,
do
we do.
fundraisers. We love doing demonstrations together,
Demonstrations.
and we just have a great time playing off each other. So, thanks for listening to who we are. and what we do.
Dabbing, yes. So as always,
We would love to hear from you. So you can, if you're listening to this on Buzzsprout, you can leave us some fan mail. You can reach us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com or etherealmaterialpod@gmail.com.
yes.
You can find us on Instagram, TikTok,
TikTok, yep.
and Spotify.
Spotify, Buzzsprout, YouTube.
Oh, YouTube, right? We're there. So thank you so much for tuning in. We really always love to hear from you. So please keep believing,
Keep questioning.
and keep in touch. See you later.